Well, they may be officially non-working royals, but Harry and Meghan certainly know how to work enthusiastic crowds in Sydney today.
It had all the hallmarks and the landmarks of an official tour, but a relaxed Duke and Duchess hit all the right places and mingled with the public on their successful return to Sydney. There was even an emotional reunion for Harry.
This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Where do I even begin with this? I really wish I was wrong, but sadly, I'm not. Harry and Meghan never truly left the institution. That's my honest sentiment here. What we are seeing now is a cover-up. Everything that we've been through, the drama, the splits, the headlines, was all part of a mission that ultimately failed. I mean, just think about it. Harry's involvement with the 2020 elections and Harry knowing about January 6th. Also, let's not forget the military-grade censorship operation that was unleashed on unsuspecting Americans, as well as Harry's involvement with the Biden regime. We don't think that the UK government didn't know about what this douchebag was doing over here? Come on. None of that would have flown if he and Meghan had still been operating under the crown while living here. From a geopolitical standpoint, it was completely untenable. So the Crown, backed by the UK government, deliberately distanced himself to create plausible deniability. Hence, Megxit was born. They needed to shield any appearance of royal involvement in undermining this country and the will of the American people, specifically to stop Donald Trump from returning to office back in 2020. Of all the distractions and failures, Harry and Meghan never strayed away from the UN's Agenda 2030. In fact, they've remained perfectly consistent with their duties, especially when it comes to censorship work and the so-called online harms agenda that's driving mass surveillance and total control over the information space. That obsession with controlling the media has always been a royal trademark. The forces behind Harry and Meghan are now the palace and the UK government to bring these fuckers back under protection.
If you woke up from a coma, a 6-year-long coma, and looked at all of these pictures, you would think they were still working members of the royal family. There are large crowds greeting and welcoming them. They are meeting the survivors of the tragic terror attack that happened on Bondi Beach a couple of weeks ago. They are supporting veterans as well, with the Invictus Games going on a sailing trip with them around Sydney Harbour, etc., etc.
That is what I think now, since the mission failed. Let's go through this article put out by the Telegraph's Victoria Ward, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The article begins, was it an exercise in self-promotion? A faux royal tour? An attempt to monetize their titles? Or a chance to highlight their charitable causes? The reality is that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex 4-day visit to Australia was all of the above. In this brave new world of California-based royalty, in which the couple mix lucrative business deals with charity work, this is the future. The whirlwind tour that took in Melbourne, Canberra, and Sydney were considered something of a test, a chance to see whether this version of royal life, the brand Sussex version, was sustainable. The conclusion, much to the likely dismay of many critics, is that yes, it very much is. The visit was considered a huge success and will now form a blueprint for future tours, including potentially those to the UK if they can get the security they want. We've tested the playbook. It worked. A source close to the Sussexes told the Telegraph in Sydney shortly before they prepared to fly back home. They're doing the right thing, whether you want to call it half in, half out, or, as they would probably describe it, just doing what they want to do and doing it in a really positive way. This week has given us reassurance that it is the right course of action. This could absolutely act as a blueprint for the future. It has been a fascinating exercise. Before the couple landed in Melbourne on Tuesday, the Australian media was largely indignant, asking what these non-working royals thought they were doing.
I think this maybe you can describe the scene a little bit.
Darling, go inside yourself, go into your heart, where all the love is, and stay there. We lay there together in this heart space. in the midst of horror, how much time passed, but we survived.
So, horrific stories that no one should ever really experience. Let me introduce you. Thanks, Jesse.
The tone of the coverage, however, shifted as it became clear that the Duke and Duchess were being welcomed at every engagement with open arms. Of course, that's what you're going to write. The disconnect between the negative commentary and the reaction on the ground is not lost on the couple. The Duke is philosophical. One thing that Harry often says is that the truth will always out, said one member of his inner circle. The more they do of this, the more that people see them, interact with them, the more they see that there isn't an agenda here. Bullshit! The sticking point will always be the couple's need to make money. Of course, money, money, money. That clash between public duty and personal interests was drawn into sharp focus this week as high-profile visits focused on mental health, of course, they've got to exploit that, and military veterans were mixed with commercial opportunities. Grifting at its finest. As the Duke spoke to a live audience about the pressures of fatherhood, a shiny new website was launched positioning the Duchess as a fashion influencer. Every item of her tour wardrobe has since been swiftly added, alongside affiliate links from which she will make some money. On Friday, after joining sick and injured military veterans on a boat trip around Sydney Harbor, the Duchess was interviewed on stage at a girls' weekend retreat that costs £1,400 per ticket and saw her pocket a decent sum while checking out. She didn't stay around to hang out with the plebs. No, she took their money and ran. Aides insisted that the fee allowed the couple to break even, funding the cost of their 9-strong team to fly to Australia, their accommodation and security. Oh, sure, Harry and Meghan just did this out of the kindness of their hearts. This is how life is for 99% of the world, one source said. They've got to work to make a living. They have to pay the electricity bill just like everyone else. Yeah, because they're just like us. They're not funded by the taxpayer. Why are they continuing to lie like this? Team Sussex is acutely aware that the pre-tour criticism largely concerned the cost to the public purse. It's important for them and for us as a team to make sure that these tours are not funded by the taxpayer, nor the charities they're trying to shine a light on, but through private means, one aide said. And I'm going to show you in a second how this is an outright lie. While there has been a small, largely observational police presence at public-facing events, the Sussex's team said there was no comparison to the public cost of their previous visit to Australia in 2018. Certainly, while large crowds have greeted the Duke and Duchess on most of their engagements, it was nothing like the circus that accompanies an official royal tour organized by the government. And also, too, 2018, people actually liked this couple. Now, people can't stand them. Whether or not the couple still manage to maintain the magic is subjective. On the ground, the thousands who have shaken hands with the couple this week hug them and discuss deeply personal issues such as mental health, bullying, and domestic violence believe they have. The Australian fashion designers whose creations have been worn this week by the Duchess have been celebrating a significant spike in sales. There was a bit of negativity surrounding their return visit, and I think that's all been put to rest, really, he said. The Sussexes could have flown to Australia, been handsomely paid for various commercial deals and personal appearances, and flown home again. Their critics believe that's exactly what they should have done. This, however, was never going to happen. The work we do, we really enjoy it, the Duke told an audience in Melbourne. We get to hang out together, meet amazing people, and go to some incredible places. And that service, that giving back for me, has been a cure.
There was something so gratuitous, and they're really not royals. They have no reason to be there. And of course, they are filming everything. In my opinion, they are going to probably sell this footage, Harry and Meghan, to another streaming company because Netflix no longer cares about them. Ted Sarandos at Netflix does not want to work with them anymore, but they're down in Australia. They're probably filming everything, and then they're going to put it together like a special that they can license or use for their own social media. But I just find it gross, right? I find it gross that you didn't want to do the work in the royal family. You didn't care that much about the Commonwealth or the people when you were in the royal family. You didn't do almost any engagements. You didn't do nearly as many engagements as Catherine, William, the Queen, Charles, everybody in between. Now that it's convenient for you, you're going to go to Australia and do this fake royal tour, and I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it. You're not royals. I don't know why you still have your titles. You're still going out there and using your kids' titles. Why are they in line for the throne? Why are your kids in line for the throne? I don't even think one of your kids, Lilibet, has even stepped foot in the UK.
Invictus, for example, gives him his annual fix of connecting with the military community and putting life into perspective. The Duchess is said to have observed during their 2018 tour, "I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this." Well, now she is. The Duke is getting his fix, and the crowds have welcomed them with affection. Next stop, UK. Just because the mainstream media, like the Telegraph, is telling you what to think doesn't mean you should ignore your common sense. This is what they've been doing to us for the past 10 years about this couple. And we need to just say enough is enough. I'll tell you, the royals, they definitely have PR deception and manipulation down to a psychological science.
But it wasn't meant to be. He's been whisked away in a security convoy through a side gate here.
He's trying to portray this image of, for the people, and yet he sneaks in the back. What a coward.
Nick Cicron was also disappointed. He'd made the special trip to the Oval to heckle the prince.
I just think he's a real sponge. He abandoned his family, sold everyone out, and yet he still prances around as a prince.
Now, I wasn't following the Camilla rehabilitation tour, but from my understanding, this was the same playbook where they shoved all of this propaganda down people's throats till they finally bought it. Same thing went for Prince Harry and turning around his reputation. Folks, do not fall for this shit. Now, I believe this circus in Australia is all part of a new narrative to convince the royals that these two idiots can actually do the job, especially now that the bandwidth is stretched so thin. They're going to pretend the couple has finally proven to Charles that they must come back. But make no mistake, this has been the plan all along. It's always about the optics. The palace still thinks it can force this garbage down our throats, and that the gullible public will happily swallow every bit of this slop. Now, if you think for a moment about the generations still largely offline, meaning they're not on social media, those who don't use X, but, might have a Facebook account or watch YouTube, in the UK and across all of the king's realms where the media is tightly controlled, the left has captured how people think and how they see the world. Now, if you disagree with me, put in the comment section why you think so. We know every day the monarch has all the newspapers laid out in front of all the headlines and stories. He does not see or use social media, so technically he's in his own echo chamber of fake news. Watching the positive press being spun, believing the public is lapping it all up and accepting it, is the optics that they want to portray in the mainstream. And they still see this controlled media as a representation of reality. This is why these globalists are so gung-ho about censoring people's voices and controlling the media. This is why there's such a hard push to implement this age restriction for the youth so they can be in control of those algorithms and push out information that they want you to believe. Just as how they're pushing this out in the mainstream media, they want to do the same with the online space and shut down voices like mine. They want the reality of the mainstream media to reflect the reality of what's going on online. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I asked Grok to give me an assessment of the sentiment from the mainstream media about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Australian 2026 tour versus the sentiment of the independent media and voices online that are not controlled. You can pause the video to read the full thing, but I'll just read you the bottom where it gives the consensus. It says here, there is a clear gap, not full alignment. Mainstream media reports the trip as a net positive with factual coverage of events and crowds, often softening criticism into balance. Independent online voices, less filtered by institutional or commercial pressures, are far more cynical, focusing on motives, costs, and diminished star power, viewing it as opportunistic rather than heartfelt. This mirrors broader patterns in Harry and Meghan's coverage. Legacy outlets trend towards polished positivity, while grassroots and alternative channels voice unvarnished skepticism. Actual on-the-ground reception appears mixed. Crowds present, but not 2018 level rapture, which mainstream downplays and independents highlight. So you can see that the perception that these mainstream media outlets are crafting with their propaganda is not the reality of what everyday regular people see. So trust your eyes, not what these MSM reporters are saying. We know after watching this couple these last 10 years that the duplicitous duo don't have a sincere bone in their body, and this constant circle jerk that the palace has us in right now needs to stop. It really needs to stop. Now, it's going to take some time for the awakening to happen around the monarchy. If we go back to the Obama era, before Trump and before Meghan Markle burst onto the scene, remember how the world looked then? I know I certainly do. As a woman and a minority, I viewed everything through a lens of this woke shit. Trump was the devil, and progress felt in jeopardy because of the threat Trump posed in 2016. That is what we were made to believe. That same narrative machine is refined and perfected by the royal family. We're told they can do no wrong, that they're politically neutral. That is all a lie. Look, power is power. Whether it's soft power or hard power makes no difference if the end result is the same. The monarch, keep in mind, meets with the prime minister every week behind closed doors, yet we're expected to believe they offer no opinions, make no requests, and simply chat about the weather? King Charles is the same man who rushes to defend Islam but stays silent on Christianity, when all that is left of his power is to defend the church, and he can't even do that. So an honest question, what is the point of the monarch when he does not represent the people, but instead the globalist cult that is forcing these destructive policies that is tearing Europe apart? Let me ask, why do the monarchists accept it without question? Are you somehow benefiting, or are you just brainwashed? Charles gets a free pass across all his realms precisely because the public has been conditioned for decades to see the monarch as this powerless entity and remains neutral, a ceremonial figurehead with no real influence, but the optics of just trying to benefit humanity. Meanwhile, the monarch is profiting off of all of this suffering that's happening with their private investments and their sustainable markets initiative and going green. All of this conditioning over decades, I believe, is the real problem. Too many people have been taught that they themselves are powerless, that the monarchy exists only for pageantry and tourism. It keeps the sheep in line. And don't fool yourself that things will magically change under William. For 10 years, we've been fed the same story about Harry and Meghan. Conversations are happening behind the scenes. William is unhappy. Once he takes the throne, he'll strip the dangerous couple of their titles. Meanwhile, William is charging full steam ahead with his father's climate agenda. The PR machine paints him and Catherine as the fresh start, the reformers who will finally clean house. But look at what's happening right now on this tour. One couple is hopping from charity to charity with boundless energy, while the current royals struggle to keep up because they simply don't have the stamina and manpower to take on these international visits. Truly, nothing is changing. The script is the same, and the palace has been there behind the scenes the whole entire time. Didn't I tell you that after Donald Trump won, that we were seeing the palace starting to position Harry to come back home? All of these videos that I did that people really didn't pay too much attention to, telling you exactly what was happening, especially 3 months ago with the 2026 extraction. This is all about optics. The press is making it sound like this was a royal success, and then you're going to see the UK government saying that they saw value and benefit to the royal family and its relations internationally. All of a sudden now there's the excuse to give back this so-called security, which I don't believe he ever lost in the first place. It's just that Meghan and those 2 invisible children don't have the protection. It's only Harry that I believe is protected. What Harry is fighting for is to protect Meghan, as well as, trying to legitimize that he has these 2 children that probably will never ever be seen. The whole thing is such a farce, and the royal family is complicit. Whether you believe that they were complicit in this whole undermining the United States, believe that they are complicit in covering up for those 2 invisible children that should not be in the line of succession. That in itself should make people question the integrity of the institution. I've come to the conclusion that Harry and Meghan were over here on a covert mission. And until someone with some kind of credibility can come forward and dispute this otherwise, I am sticking to that. Now, I'm not angry that the media is positioning Harry and Meghan as if they should come back to the royal family because this was a success. I'm not annoyed by that. I'm more annoyed at the fact that it's happening and no accountability right now is happening for this couple, as if everything that they did has been forgotten. A lot of harm was caused. And when you really think about the seriousness of what Harry and Meghan were involved with here in the United States, more people need to be angry that this is just now all of a sudden be like it never happened. My disappointment lies in why have the authorities not locked these 2 up yet?
It is, at the moment, it appears they seem to be kind of getting away with it. Let's see what happens perhaps in a couple of months where we know, well, we think at least, that Harry at least will be here in the United Kingdom in July for the Invictus Games Birmingham 1-year countdown. Is Meghan going to come? Well, at the moment, Harry says he will not bring Meghan or the children to the UK because taxpayers aren't paying, well, not because of taxpayers, but because he doesn't have 24-hour armed police protection while he's in the UK. So unless that changes, I doubt Meghan will come for this royal tour, quasi-royal tour, however you want to put it.
Instead, we see Meghan's rictus grin everywhere, as if she's like, I stuck my middle fingers up at all of you, and look at me now. I'm getting what I want, right? That's the irritating thing about all of this. She has come here to the United States with her douchebag husband and took away a lot from the American people. When you really think about it, interfering with our election and being a part of that censorship cabal in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story, as well as being a part of resettling unvetted Afghans here, making this country less safe. They incited so much hatred and division, as well as pretty much ignited a race war in the UK, and we're all just going to say, okay, all is forgiven. Welcome back. All because the globalists were trying to prevent Donald Trump from getting back into office, and now he's back into office. These 2 little bitches are running back to the UK for the safety and protection of the crown. No, we cannot let this happen. We cannot stop talking about it. As much as these mainstream media outlets keep pushing this propaganda, don't fall into the trap. Do not get suckered into thinking that, maybe Harry and Meghan have changed. Maybe they need to come back. Because the next thing you know, we're going to start seeing these articles, which we've already started to see, these little seeds being planted of Catherine being the peacemaker. And before you know it, William and Harry now have reconciled and the wives are getting along. We're going to see these headlines of how Charles's dying wish is to see his sons reconcile before he goes. The real test is seeing if William does end up reconciling. What his brother has done over the past 7 years is truly unforgivable. And in my opinion, if indeed it was real, should never be anywhere around the family ever again, never to be trusted again. After what we have watched go on, those 2 can never be trusted again. But if indeed those two do get welcomed back into the fold, and it's like as if nothing happened, then, it's going to be hard to think that they too weren't a part of it, right? It's going to be very hard to think that they weren't a part of this whole idiotic exercise that we went through. And the fact that this woman scammed so many people into thinking that she was going to Coogee Beach to spend a girls' weekend when she only showed up for 2 hours and then left. Imagine if you were one of the suckers who paid $3,000 to hang out with Meghan Markle and she just showed up for 2 hours, talked about herself, and then left. Again, this is showing how these two can stick their middle fingers up at people and get away with it. Because as long as they have the media on their side, then they can do no wrong. Clearly, as we just witnessed in this Victoria Ward piece, she should be ashamed of herself for publishing such harmful lies, because this is not misinformation. This is legit disinformation to gaslight the public. And this yesterday just sent me over the edge. Apparently, they have royal photographers with them on this so-called fake royal tour, which is not really fake, especially when they're labeling these photos as Australia, Britain royals. Like, come on. Make it even more obvious for us to say that, the palace is complicit here. This photographer that you see here, Jonathan Brady, was with the royals a few weeks ago taking photos of Prince William. Now, I'd like to just point something out, going back to this article in this paragraph where it says it's more important for them and for us as a team to make sure that these tours are not funded by the taxpayer, nor the charities they are trying to shine a light on, but through private means. And that's the key phrase there, where it says private means. They're not saying Harry and Meghan are personally funding it. I'm sure when they say private means, they're talking about being paid for the speaking engagements that we saw with Harry at InterEdge Summit and then also at Movember. But that doesn't mean that indirectly it didn't come from the taxpayer. That had influence coming from the crown. Let me show you one of those examples. So on the 15th, Harry participated in a discussion with this organization called Movember. Movember is a men's health organization that originally started out focusing on prostate cancer. It is now branched out focusing on men's mental health. Now, it's been rumored that the type of cancer King Charles has is prostate cancer. What are the odds? And then on top of it, 2 weeks ago, the UK government announces its partnership with Movember, announcing that the Men's Health Community Fund, backed by £3 million from DHSC with Movember and People's Health Trust, more than doubling the government's initial funding to give an overall investment of £6.3 million, almost $8 million, literally 2 weeks ago. Then on the day when Harry participated in this Q&A, the UK government gives an additional £42 million to this landmark Transform prostate cancer screening trial, co-founded by Prostate Cancer UK, which Movember is the main beneficiary of that £42 million. So do I think King Charles had something to do with this? Absolutely. Who do you think could have advised and made a recommendation that this organization receive this money? I mean, after all, the king does meet with Keir Starmer on a weekly basis. I mean, let's use a little common sense here. In those discussions, I'm pretty sure taxpayer money is being discussed on how it's spent and who it goes to. And given that it's been rumored that Charles has prostate cancer, I mean, is anybody surprised that Harry is now representing an organization that's focused on that? Even if it is to siphon UK taxpayer dollars now. Now, technically, the Sussex PR machine is not lying. No, they're not using Australian taxpayer dollars, but they're also not being truthful here, because if Harry is getting paid an appearance fee by Movember, where do you think that money came from? Obviously, that came from now the UK taxpayer, but now laundered in a way that you can't trace it back to any government. And now you have plausible deniability all the way around, because now you're not able to trace that money. So Harry's getting paid as if it's a legit payment, but really there could have been behind the scenes deal making. And that's what I think is going on here. Another indicator that Harry was representing the crown was the Minister for Veterans Affairs showing up to meet Harry personally. I don't believe that this was a private visit for 1 second. 1 second, I don't believe it. And neither does Richard Eden, apparently. Yesterday, he wrote this piece for the Daily Mail titled "The Establishment Plot Thickens." Richard Eden reveals the fears inside Kate and Will's camp as Harry and Meghan put on a royal show down under and rumors about couples' return to Britain swirl. Now, what I think here is that Richard Eden is part of the controlled opposition. It almost feels like Richard Eden is breaking this news gently to us so we don't turn on the royals all at once. I'm not going to read the article, but this was the most concerning thing that I took away from it, where he writes, "Project Thaw isn't just wishful thinking on the part of the Sussexes and their friends. It is supported by some senior politicians in Britain and key figures at Buckingham Palace." Without having to say the king, he could very well be meaning the king, right? Who is a key figure at Buckingham Palace? Isn't it the king? And then you have key figures in British government. That could be Starmer, that could be Yvette Cooper, that could be Shabana Mahmood. Yeah, it's looking more and more like they're going to be bringing this guy home, because if Harry goes down here in the United States, I think the whole UK government can go down, especially with the things that Harry's been involved with. Oh, to be a fly on the wall for that private tea with the king and Donald Trump. At this point, as I said yesterday in my community posts, I'm done. I'm not a fan of King Charles. I'm going to just say it right now. I am not in support of what he has allowed his son to come here and do. And now seeing what they're getting away with in Australia, to me, I think is disgusting. It's so disgusting to me. I got to be honest. I don't have high hopes that even William is going to do anything when he takes over. And the reason why I say that is because, look, we're 6 years into this. If they haven't done anything by now, what makes you think they're going to do something then? I think they're at this mindset exactly to what this article said yesterday. Look, as long as Harry and Meghan don't attack the family, then, they can go off and do whatever they want. Which I think is quite reckless, because we've witnessed Harry and Meghan abuse their power and privilege to cause a tremendous amount of harm to so many people over the last 6 years that, quite frankly, I think they both deserve to be in jail. That's my honest opinion. And that's all I can say. At this point, I'm pretty much done with King Charles. Really. And I don't want him coming to the United States, and I certainly don't want him visiting 9/11 and exploiting our grief and using us as a PR tool. And I find it unfortunate. I don't know what to tell you on what should be done. I don't really think it will be effective if you write letters to Buckingham Palace, because it's pretty clear the king doesn't give a shit about anybody. So, what do you do? And the only thing that I can say is, I just can't support it. If he was really defending the faith and Christianity, you're right along with it. But he can't even do that. There's no, reason in my eyes to support that. And it's unforgivable what his son has done here. And that's my opinion. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
It was such a fraud.